So this is a session about generative AI, but let me tell you that this is not just another session about generative AI, at least not a typical one. So a typical one would start with a different title, so something like Unleashing the Power of Gen AI or Unveiling the Potential of Gen AI. But, and also additional content and images could be generated within this type of technology. And that would be great because we could show how this type of technologies can be used to support our daily tasks, such as presenting or preparing a presentation for an event like this one. But, well, we decided to follow a different approach. So this is not a typical generative AI session. So all the content that you are going to see here, it was in fact produced by João and myself, because we wanted to provide a more pragmatic and, let me even say, honest perspective about how we are approaching generative AI and how we are guiding our customers through this journey. And the best way to do it, in our opinions, is to share our stories, our case studies that we have already been deploying with our customers and the results that we have already achieved. So let me start by saying that generative AI is already a strategic priority for the coming years. And potentially every company throughout the world is interested in knowing the full potential of this type of technology. And there are already a myriad of different ideas for use cases. In fact, that is the easy part. There are a lot of ideas for use cases to be developed with generative AI. In fact, every time we have a brainstorm session with a client, there is a new set of ideas. But it comes a moment in time where other type of question arises. So people want to know where is the value, what is the impact, what is the business case, where is the return on investment? How can we prioritize all the use cases that we want to develop with this type of technology? So in the end, what I'm saying is that the clients are requesting, show me the value, show me the money, show me the impact, show me the business case. And thinking about this challenge and also the importance of having a business case, we created a framework that help our clients in this process, so to better define the Gen AI strategy. And with this framework, we define 3 different types of inputs. So starting with the use cases, we may, for instance, be interested in augmenting the intelligence at the contact center to better support our clients. We may want to recommend actions to the field service technicians, or we may want to better assist our operations engineers. And for each of the use cases, we define or we identify a set of AI features that need to be implemented in order to build a use case. If we are talking about Gen AI and in specifics for the NLP domain, it's quite common to have the features of intent recognition, sentiment analysis, and summarization. And the third input that is very, very important is a comprehensive set of measures that we need to analyze in order to have the starting point and also to evaluate and monitor the evolution through time so that in the end we can evaluate if we have or not a business case. And typical measures here are minimum time to detect, minimum time to resolve, and of course costs and revenue. And all of these inputs combined can be used to define a set of expectations that, if they indeed are met, so we have a business case. So for example, we can have an augmented customer support use case. For that, let's imagine that we will need to have in place capabilities such as intent recognition, summarization, sentiment analysis, and we will be tracking a lot of measures, but in particular, we will be focused on these ones. So we want to track first contact resolution, we want to track call handling time, and also agent costs and the new API costs that Gen AI also brings into the equation. And based on all of these, we can define what is a reasonable expectation for a business case. Maybe it is an increase of 10% in NPS, maybe it is 20% of cost savings on a specific domain. So we use this framework to help our clients defining the best strategy, and then we use our augmented intelligence framework, so a more technical framework, to develop the use cases, and we use this as an accelerator. And we have been successfully applying it to different use cases, from customer to service and network operations. So I won't go through all of these in detail, but let me provide just an overview. So starting from the bottom, we have a canonical model, meaning that we can receive information from all the channels, so calls, IVR, bots, knowledge base, tickets, emails, and so on. We then augment this canonical model with Gen AI capabilities such as the ones that I already mentioned, and build a universal interaction model. We may also, depending on the use case, add additional capabilities, AI capabilities, such as recommendation, predictive, clustering, and so on, to build more complex, maybe more interesting use cases as well. And then we provide all of these insights through a set of specific APIs, or through a very appealing set of dashboards and other visualization tools or interfaces. So in a nutshell, what this framework is providing is, it is leveraging on Gen AI tools or capabilities. We are also agnostic to LLM versions. We bring additional AI capabilities to build more complex and robust use cases, and we can very easily integrate these into the technical stack of the customers, of our clients, in order to not bring an additional product with additional licenses to the equation. So now, let's move to the stories. So I will start with story number 1. I will present 2 use cases, and then I'll ask my colleague João to move forward with story number 2 and 2 additional use cases, and they will conclude the presentation. So we try to bring a wider perspective here, so we will connect the customer experience or the customer perspective with the network performance as well, because as you know, customer experience is key also to understand how the network is really providing the required service level to the customers. So I'm talking about stories, but please recall that this is not just stories. These, in fact, are use cases that we already developed for our customers, or we are still developing. So real cases, real situations. So starting with story number 1, we start with a customer complaining about an internet Wi-Fi issue and the interaction at the customer support. This is use case number 1. And then, unfortunately, it will follow to use case number 2, so it will require a field service intervention. So for this use case number 1, the challenge is how to improve customer experience by providing more personalized and efficient interactions. So we have been all through this type of situations. We typically want this to happen smoothly and fast, but sometimes, or quite often, it's not the case. So the type of metrics that we will follow, or we will need to track in this type of situation of use case, is first contact resolution. So we want to solve the customer issue at first, so we don't want the customer to call back again with the same issue. We want to reduce call handling time, so we want to solve the issue and do it fast. And we also want to reduce operational costs, so we will be monitoring agent costs. So let's do a deep dive into the use case. So this is a typical situation at a contact center. So we have a customer calling about internet signal. So he has a weak internet signal in his bedroom, and the agent is trying to assist. Okay, let me try if I can improve the signal. Probably not, and so the typical question arises. So can you reboot the router, or at least can you please move it closer to the bedroom? The client says that it is not possible, so the agent at the customer support says, okay, I will transfer the call now to the technical support to help you further. And now to see how the Gen AI is supporting this type of use case, let's look at the application that the technical support agent will be using for the next steps in the interaction. So on the left side, we can see that he has access to all the previous conversations, so all the steps, all the dialogue, but more important than that part is what we have on the right, which is the summarization. So we reach from 80 to 95% of summarization capacity, meaning that a task that typically requires several minutes, now it only requires some seconds, okay? And the context is available for the agent to start interacting with the customer. Also, we have NPS at scale. So our client shared that he had only 10% of NPS scores, and right now we can do it at scale. So what does it mean? It means that we can identify or determine sentiment analysis for all the customers, all the interactions in all the channels. And we can even take this further, because we can identify the sentiment at the beginning of the interaction, during the interaction, and at the end, so that we can also understand the impact of the agent in all this experience with the customer. Another very important analysis is deep detractors. So we don't want deep detractors. They are for sure bad for business. So typically what happens is that we have some agents listening to some audio samples of the calls in order to understand why a specific customer is a detractor. And this takes weeks, okay? And it works only for a small set of sample. Here we can have this information almost immediately, so we can identify who the deep detractors are, and in some situations also identify the root cause for the dissatisfaction. And finally, we have other analyses that are quite relevant in this area as well. So we want to understand if this is an interrupted call, if it is a repeated call for the same issue, or also if the agent, for some reason, promised to call back again, and that never happened. And this, in fact, was a very important topic to monitor, because this was in the top 5 reasons for dissatisfaction. And now let's imagine that the story continues, and unfortunately, it will require an additional step, an additional team, and we go to use case number 2. So here the challenge is how to increase field service intervention efficiency while improving customer experience. And the measures that we are going to track here is first site resolution, NPS scores, churn, and costs. And here we already have, because the client shared with us, a very specific metric that they wanted to improve. So there were already 6% of interventions requiring second visit, and the client want to be able to impact this specific metric. So again, let's look at the application that the field service technician is using to better understand how Gen AI can better support his tasks, okay? So first we have the description of the work order, which is the typical procedure, and then we have a set of 3 recommendations of what needs to be performed to be successful and while addressing this type of issue, okay? We already proved with this solution to be able to reduce in 20% the number of second site visits, so we are calling this the unnecessary, the avoidable visits, and 1.1% reduction in the overall field service costs, okay? What was the approach here? So we learned from the good examples. So we used historical data from the work orders in order to understand what were the actions that were most successfully, okay? So for the work orders that did not require a follow-up. We also use ensemble learning, meaning that we use multiple machine learning algorithms to better adapt to each of the scenarios, and we are now discussing the next steps. So we are also discussing about how we can also correlate network data into these so that we can improve the accuracy over time. And now I will ask João to continue the stories. Thank you.
Hey guys, João Antunes, Head of Autonomous Networks at Celfocus. I will Oh, yeah, sorry. It's okay? Thank you. Better, yeah. So João Antunes, Head of Autonomous Networks offering at Celfocus, and I'm here to tell you about story number 2. Similar to Carla, customer appears with an issue, okay? But in my story, the customer is having an issue with TV image. So he is not having any TV image on his TV. And so for this story, we are showcasing two more use cases. So use case number 3, how we can assist the agent while doing this conversation with the customer. And use case number 4, how also we can help TV operations doing root cause analysis of the problem, and also, of course, take actions to solve this problem. So in use case number 3, we want to assist the agent in being more confident doing the tasks, okay? And so the challenge here that we want to solve is how to assist less experienced people, agents, solving these customer problems with more efficiency. Of course, we know how agents work, how rotation works in this type of teams. And so we want to help the agent be more confident while doing this intervention with the customer and while providing some possible solutions for the customer to solve this. 3 benefits we want to achieve with this use case. First, of course, improve the first contact resolution, again, like in the use case that Carla showed us before, and reduce the time to access critical information, hence also affecting the final time of the call, and as well increase the process compliancy of the agent while he's having the conversation with the customer on the phone. So we want to make sure that he is compliant with whatever processes we have while having this call. So if we imagine this situation, use case number 3, we are trying to assist the agent while doing this conversation. The customer gets home, turns on the TV, no image, absolutely no image. So he will call customer operations, and of course, you can imagine he's presented with the typical questions. Is your cable on? Is your cable connected? Is your TV on? Is your set-top box connected? And so on and so forth. And so that he finally tries to reboot the set-top box, the TV, and so on. In this case, we are particularly being stubborn with the customer's problem, and the image will appear after this conversation, but it's pixelated, okay? So customer operations will need to pass down to technical operations so that technical operations can help them solve the problem. But first, let's look at how the agent was assisted during this conversation. So similar to Carla's examples of how we can assist the intervention on the phone call with the customer. So the agent has, of course, a set of tools at their disposal to do the troubleshooting, to do the questions. And of course, he will have critical information on his dashboard that will help him know more about the customer, know more about the problem, and so on and so forth. But there are 4 use cases that we want to show here that are using also Gen AI that can help getting more critical information onto the hands and onto the eyes of our agent. So the first one is how we do intent recognition. And intent recognition is not static recognition, it's real-time recognition of the intent. So while we are having this conversation with the customer, we are understanding what's happening. What does the customer want? And of course, during the call, this might change because as we saw in the use case, the problem might be no image on my TV, but then it might pass into my image is pixelated. And so we need to understand the intent in real time. And of course, this will help us doing the next stages of the resolution process because we need to understand what are the next stages. And for the next stages, if we know the intent, the better, okay? So in the second example that we show here, that where Gen AI could help us or help the agents doing this call, is with script recommendations. So probably if we can present on the agent with scripts that can help them during the call, asking the customer the right questions or doing the right steps, we are probably optimizing this phone call with the customer. And of course, we can present the dynamic scripts according to the problem and what's happening within the conversation. So here we expect 25% of call optimization, more or less. In terms of also, another example of how GenAI could help us is to improve the agent compliancy. So there are certain things that the agent needs to ask, be it mandatory or that have to do with the process itself. For instance, every agent needs to ask the customer, can I record a phone call? So we need to understand, and not only for the management of this agent to understand what is the compliancy of my old team, but also for this agent to know where he is at the process and what is he being compliant with everything that is being asked from him. Okay, so here we are using this technique, of course, to detect if the agent is doing the mandatory steps, such as the steps that he is required to do legally, but also the steps that he has to take to try and solve the problem to the customer. Finally, the last example of usage of GenAI is while he's doing this phone call, while he's being presented with the intent, with the recommendations, with the compliance, being checked for compliance, he can also be presented with smart-related topics, meaning that through cognitive search and using the intent in real time, we are able to present him with useful links. So for instance, if the customer refers that doesn't know where to reset the set-top box, the system can understand that and present him with a manual, or the agent with a manual for the set-top box, so that he can help the customer doing this. So those are some examples of how we can use GenAI further. So as you recall, our problems passed on to a pixelated image, and this will, of course, follow up to the technical TV operations guys who need to solve this problem. And so the challenge that we want to take here on the use case number 4 is how to democratize and accelerate this incident root cause analysis. We are showing here for TV, but of course is applicable for networks, for service, and of course the resolution procedures. So what are we looking for here in terms of benefits? First, improve the root cause analysis capabilities, in addition to what they already have, additional capabilities to query and tap into the data that is there in terms of problems and solutions and what people did before. Also to reduce the mean time to resolve, of course, and consequently, we hope to reduce the operational costs as well. So if you imagine the poor guy trying to solve this problem to the customer while on the phone, so he's presented with customer complaints that TV image is pixelated, and he doesn't have a clue how to solve this. Maybe it's her first week, his first week on the job, and so he doesn't have a clue. And through GenAI, of course, we are able to understand that customer complaints TV image is pixelated, so searching for this database and using the language models, we are able to understand that in the past, with 55% of certainty, probably the set-top box is connected by Wi-Fi, and you should try to connect by Ethernet cable. Okay, so this is one of the recommendations that can be presented to this guy so that he can try and solve the problem. Accelerating, of course, in addition to what he already has in terms of troubleshooting techniques. Of course, they can be combined later on in the future so that this is more and more accurate. In addition to that, of course, it's not only to have these recommendations dynamically, but also the capability that we can give to this guy on a co-pilot to do more questions about the problem, more questions about the solution, and more questions about who solved or whatever he wants to ask. Again, tapping into this information that is on the database on our data platforms. So for this, we are doing a feasibility ongoing at the moment, where we are getting this data offline, trying to understand how we can augment the data and how we can extract those recommendations, hoping to improve root cause categorization, and of course also to provide reporting to engineers so that they work in a proactive way. For instance, probably the engineers would tell the field services, please do not connect set-top boxes with Wi-Fi, because that's ruining our experience to our customers. So to end, how do we suggest that we go about and use these use cases and turning them into business cases? So we recommend, please start with a feasibility. You need to understand whether you have a use case, but you also have a business case that will turn into benefit later on. So for that, we recommend, strongly recommend a feasibility where you discuss the business case, picking that use case and telling, okay, understanding how that can reflect towards some benefits, whatever it is in terms of costs or improving the NPS. So discuss the business case. Is Gen AI really required? Because it's not just using Gen AI for the sake of it. You need to understand whether it is, in fact, the only technology or the right technology to solve it. And then, of course, assess the context, what you have in terms of data, what you have in terms of data platforms, in terms of security and privacy concerns, and agree the goals and do an offline POV. Offline POV is just about getting that data into an offline, not having to do hard integrations and checking whether the models, the large language models that you create in the training are able to provide you with data that is trustable enough to do some recommendations. So we normally take 6 to 8 weeks doing that. And of course, if the POV has some good results in terms of what data comes out of recommendations. So, of course, follow up with the MVP implementation, defining and planning a roadmap, agreeing KPIs, a scalable architecture, starting small and growing according to the needs, setting up a data platform, if not already existing, and setting up the real data streams, connecting it with the models of the language so that you can then fine-tune and build or integrate with existing dashboards. And, of course, from there, evolve the iterations according to the business case backlogs, and, of course, evolve the platform on a fit-for-purpose basis according to the needs of the use cases that will be there instantiated. I guess that's all. So hope you like our stories, our 4 use cases, and so this is, again, how we can see Gen AI helping towards operational efficiency. Thank you.